Here they are, Representative Lewis and Elwyn Wilson, a former KKK member. Nearly half a century has passed since that attack, and John Lewis says all is forgiven. Elwyn Wilson is joining me from Charlotte, North Carolina, and Representative John Lewis in Washington. Thank you both for joining us. Very courageous of both of you to do this.
Thank you.
Mr. Wilson, I know you've spoken to the congressman recently, but is there anything else you'd like to say to him?
I've thought about him a lot since I left Washington, and I found out what kind of man he was, and I enjoyed the trip up there, and I didn't think I'd ever see the day when I'd find out who I beat up at the bus station in Rock Hill. And it started off with, they had picture of, they call them the City Sisters in Rock Hill that went to Friendship College. Mm-hmm. Then they had the Friendship 9 that went to college there. And when I saw the sisters, I'd already tried and did change my life. Mm-hmm. And I'm talking about spiritually and everything.
I'm going to continue on and let you talk in a little bit, but I just, before we go forward, I want to get Congressman Lewis's response. What do you say to him after, I mean, you were beaten up, hurt pretty bad, lots of other folks, some people even lost their lives because of the actions of men like Elwyn and Mr. Wilson. What do you say to him?
Well, I said to Mr. Wilson when I met with him early during the week when he came to Washington to visit with me, and he said he wanted to apologize and that he was sorry, and I said, I forgive you, and I don't have any bitterness or hatred, because it was in keeping with what we believed in, that we should have the capacity and the ability to forgive, that love is much stronger than hate. And it was very moving and very touching for me for him to come to Washington and say, I'm sorry for what I did. Mm-hmm. And Mr. Wilson, in almost 50 years, been the only and the first and only person who attacked me and that said, I'm sorry.
And Congressman, I don't even know if you know this. I spoke with Mr. Wilson earlier today by telephone, and he was a little reticent on the phone to even answer. And when I told him who I was, he talked to me. But Mr. Wilson, tell him about some disturbing phone calls that you have been getting.
Well, I got one phone call from a boy from Rutgers College, and the telephone rang. I answered it. He said, is this Elwyn Wilson? I said, you're right. He said, you are slummy, black Ian dog. And he just kept on talking. He told me, he said, here you are with KKK, took an oath, and here you are, gone back on your word, and against the white people.
You were outraged by that phone call, and you said you had to call the police. Can you believe, Mr. Wilson, 2009, some 50 years after that confrontation that you had with the congressman, that there's still that sort of hate in the world?
Not as much as it used to be, I don't think.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry that someone would do something like that to you, Mr. Wilson, that someone would call and use those words, and it is sad, but what you're doing, I think, is right, and it's very much in keeping with what we all believe in.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Wilson, do you have, people are watching, what do you want them to know about why you did it and about what we should be doing or how we should be treating the topic of race right now in this country?
Well, I'd like to put another, add something to we were talking about, the guy that called me, he, I don't know why he would be like that, because just like I told him, I said, one day I hope that you get the hatred out of yourself, and he said, well, why did you change? I said, well, my daddy always told me that a fool never changes his mind, and a smart man changes his mind. And that's what I've done, and I'm not ashamed of it. And I'm not trying to be a Martin Luther King or something like that. It all started off with Andrew Dye in the local newspaper, and snowballed on up. And I never would have thought I could apologize to this many people.
Well, you got the chance.
I feel like I'm apologizing to the world right now.
Oh, well, thank you, Mr. Wilson. And Mr. Lewis, I'll give you the last word on this if you'd like to comment.
Well, I think this shows the power of grace and love. It is very much in keeping with the philosophy and the discipline of nonviolence, to have the ability, the capacity to say, I'm sorry, forgive me, and the person that received the attack will say, you're forgiven. Because hate is too heavy a burden to bear. Maybe Mr. Wilson will inspire others to come forward.
And I said it was going to be the last question, but it just crossed my mind. Did you ever think that you'd be in this position with someone like Mr. Wilson apologizing to you?
I never thought in all these many years that someone like Mr. Wilson will be apologizing to me.
Yeah.
No.
Well, you both are, again, very brave for doing this, and we appreciate your candor. And Mr. Wilson, thank you very much. We hope that you don't get any more of those phone calls. Thanks to both of you.
Thank you very much.
All right.
He faced down racial discrimination to chase his dreams and enter the record books.
I feel like a few years ago that when I was chasing my dream, that if somebody didn't step in and say, Hank, keep chasing, keep doing this, then I would not have had the chance to be a home run hitter.
Now Hank Aaron is celebrating another milestone.